I played Persona 5 for the first time back in September of 2016. Years later, I still can't get it out of my head. The music, the visuals, the crazy monster design. There are so many things that the game does great, it's difficult to talk about just one. So it wasn't hard for the expanded version of the game, Persona 5 Royal, to convince me to double dip. And I guess it's around here that I should warn everyone, if you haven't played Persona, stop the video, go play it. You'll probably get more value from that than you will listening to me talk about it. And I'm also going to talk about the mechanics of the game and how they work in detail. It's probably best to discover those mechanics on your own. Having said that, the game is 100 plus hours long, it's a turn-based JRPG, and one of the main characters is a horny cat creature. So yeah, not everyone's cup of tea. I get it. And there are things even I don't like about the game. I get tired of the constant text messages, I get tired of how often characters repeat themselves, and I especially abhor how long the game takes to really get going, which is 8 or so hours in case you were curious. But those that give it a chance will find something that I think is truly special and unique. A lot of people will describe the game as part JRPG and part high school simulator. That's true enough, but I also can't shake the feeling that the description is doing the game somewhat of a disservice. A lot of what makes Persona 5 so fantastic is the way those two halves intersect, and how the mechanics of the dungeon crawling are influenced by who you hang out with, how often you study, and whether or not you win the Big Bang Burger Challenge. Front and center is the game's confidant system. As you spend time with the characters around you, you raise their confidant levels. The higher your confidant level, the more powerful of a persona you can summon. But that's not all. Confidants will also unlock new abilities as they level up. And some of these unlocked abilities are really powerful, like Tekami, who can sell you really strong medicine, or Kawakami, who can help you free up your schedule so you can spend more time improving other characters. To make matters more complicated, some confidants are locked behind your character's social stats, which you have to raise by spending even more time. And don't forget, the game takes place over a year-long period, with each dungeon having a due date for completion, which is all to say you really don't have all the time in the world, and you have to spend what time you do have very, very carefully. If you go in blind without the help of a guide or something like it, then it is virtually impossible to do everything and max out every confidant level your first time out. It's technically possible, but I just don't see it happening. My first Persona game was Persona 4, and since I didn't want to have to play a 100+ hour game twice, I followed a guide line by line and came away with an alright impression of the game. When Persona 5 came out, I decided to do it blind and just see what I ended up with. And that is absolutely the way to play these games. You're meant to miss stuff. Some of your confidants, maybe as many as half, won't be maxed out. There are moments between characters that you'll miss. You're just not meant to see it all. This isn't Dragon Age or Mass Effect where you can talk to one character, then the next, and on until you've exhausted all of the dialogue and you've heard it all. If you hang out with on May 28th, then that's it. You're not going to get that day back. And there are going to be some characters that you're just not going to get to know that well. Some of your decisions will be based around gameplay decisions. Kawakami, for example, offers up too many improvements for me to ignore, even though I kind of hate her character, which is definitely a flaw of the game in my opinion. But some of your decisions, if not most of them, will absolutely come from personal preference. I might spend my time with An, and you might spend more time with Futaba, but either way, your connection to the character will be a strong one because you're giving up something to develop it. And it's that connection that makes these relationships feel real. Not everyone decided to spend May 28th walking with An in the park, but I did. That moment felt like it was my own, not just some preordained cutscene, because it was something I made sacrifices for to fit in my schedule with the limited amount of time that I had. These decisions leak into dungeon crawling as well. If clearing a dungeon or palace, as Persona calls them, in 2 days instead of 3 means you might get an extra afternoon lounging around with Ryuji or another night in the arcade with Shinya, then you might be tempted to risk it. Persona is at its best in moments like these, when the game asks you to sacrifice comfort in order to spend more time with the characters you care about. So many games fall into this pitfall where they attempt to replicate the intricacies of real-life relationships. The problem with that is that these systems never approach the nuances of dealing with real people, and even if they could, I don't know if that would really be a good video game. Meaningful relationships in video games will never come from systems, and most of the time that means that the writing staff and voice actors will have to lift the extra weight to get the job done. More than that, most video game relationships never feel real because the games rarely ask us to sacrifice for them. Relationships in the real world are valuable to us partly because they require work, they require sacrifice, and they require commitment. Sometimes that means being close to some people and distant from others. After all, you can't be everyone's best friend. The designers behind Persona know that commitment is more an essential part in building authentic relationships than always saying the right thing or giving the right gifts. I finished my 120-hour playthrough of Persona 5 a couple of months ago, and like Persona 4 before it, I don't think there were that many lasting moments. That's not what Persona was ever about. It's about lasting relationships and the connections formed between people. And it's got that in spades. So here's to my old crew. Until next time, thanks guys.
Have no face to show. Please don't take off my mask, my disguise.